Hello, and welcome to the Holistic Living, Learning, and Loving podcast, where we are bringing you back to the basics.
We explore sustainable living and holistic health and strive for progress, not perfection.
So please join us on a wellness journey and feel empowered to make positive changes in your life.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are so glad that you're with us again this week. We have something that's kind of been on our minds for a while, but lately, kind of in recent news articles and things like that, we're going to talk about seed oils. But we just want to thank you so much for being here. Please ask you to give us a thumbs up right now if you're on YouTube watching this video. Please like our channel on podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube. Please share with a friend if you feel like the message here was good and that you feel like someone else could use it. We really appreciate some engagement with you guys, and we appreciate your time today, and we hope that you get something out of this. So yeah, I started tracking on seed oils a couple of months ago, maybe before summerish, I guess, is like when I started thinking about that more. And it's been really prevalent in the news lately. Some things have come out about seed oils being bad for us, and we just wanted to explain, like, what are seed oils? Why do we care about this? What is mainstream news talking about right now? And what we can do to make a change in our diets, because seed oils is a big change. It's a big one.
Yeah, it's in everything. But everybody always tells you that seed oils are bad. Seed oils are bad. Don't eat them. But nobody it's like not many people know why.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I know. And that's so important, because if you don't understand why it's bad, then how can you even care?
Yeah, you're not really going to try to avoid it as much until you really know why and how bad it is for you.
Mm-hmm. So whenever we say seed oil, basically what we're talking about, like when you're at the grocery store, when you're looking at labels, when you're looking at oil or whatever, we're talking about canola oil, which also can be called rapeseed oil, which is weird name for an oil. I don't care for it. Corn oil, cottonseed oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. Not exactly even sure what safflower is. Grape seed oil and rice bran oil is kind of like our fundamental seed oils that we're talking about.
And also, I know we're just mostly covering seed oils, but vegetable oils are not good for you either.
Yeah. Well, yeah, vegetable oils are still seed oils.
Right? Because they're made from corn most of the time.
And like mixtures,
and corn
I
is
think.
a seed, right?
Yeah. And like it's like a mixture, I think, of other stuff too, possibly.
Yeah. So that would be in this category as well. I think a lot of people, like especially people who aren't familiar with anything health related at all, will often think that vegetable oil is good.
Yeah, no.
Because that's what we're told. And also it's called vegetable oil, so it just sounds good, but it's not.
Yeah, it says vegetable oils are palms, soybeans, peanut oils. So I guess vegetable is just kind of interchangeable for any of these things, basically, because vegetables are the seeds that they're talking about. Yeah. So, and then just as a sidebar, what do we even use instead? So we use olive oils, coconut oils, animal fats,
avocado
oil, but those have been kind of wishy-washy on the media lately too. So
it depends, but especially if you're going to cook, like olive oil and coconut oil aren't always good for high heat cooking. And when they say high heat, they don't just mean like really high frying heat. Like they mean basically like cooking anything on the stove or the oven.
Yeah.
So I think avocado is like one of the really, animal fats is your best. Like lard, that's like probably the safest, especially for high heat cooking. As far as all of the others, those aren't really ideal.
Yeah, I think you have to look at the bottle. So if you look at your bottle of olive oil, somewhere in the fine print, it is going to say it's good up to temperatures of probably like 350, maybe even 300. I don't know. I mean, every bottle could be different, and some might be leaning more conservatively than others. But there's a limit on how hot that oil should get. And whenever it exceeds that limit and the oil gets too hot, it basically does the bad things that these seed oils are doing. It's oxidating and causing it to degrade and making it less good for your body.
It oxidates and it's causing I don't know. We're going to discuss it later, actually. But it's called its smoke point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they all have their different smoke points. But avocado oil is one of the ones that have the highest smoke point. So you just have to look into it because, with all oils, even olive oils, not all of them are great.
Yeah.
You want high quality.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that a little bit further. We have a whole section devoted to it. We have like a little script that we kind of go off of, make sure we're staying on topic and then moving on. But like back in historic times, there was no infrastructure making this oil takes a bit of processing to get to. We're going to talk about that as well. But how did we get here? Families back in the day used to use animal fats, right? They would cook bacon and have the bacon grease. I know a lot of people still do collect bacon grease to cook with it. I feel like really popular where we're from in Louisiana, but maybe that's popular everywhere. I don't know. A lot of people would use lard and tallow and all these other type of products to fry, saute, bake with all of their oil needs. But basically, in the early 1900s, Procter and Gamble started making partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil called Crisco, and that was like a really big turning point in the modernization of our oil diet. But cottonseed oil was toxic to consume, and it's how they were making it before. And so they figured out a way to refine it into something that we could actually eat.
The whole reason that they started moving towards making these oils was because of the war, or World War II, I think it was. In Canada, they started growing massive amounts of the rapeseed plant, whatever that is. I mean, is it called a rapeseed plant? I just know it's rapeseed. I don't know if you actually call it a rapeseed plant. But that's what canola.
It's a plant.
Huh? Yeah.
It's kind of cute. It's a nice little white flower. It almost looks like hydrangea.
It's actually in the brassica family.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I found that out this morning.
Oh,
so they were growing massive amounts of this in Canada to provide lubricant for the war, for warships, trains, etc. And once the war was over, they no longer needed all of these crops they had of it. So they were trying to find use for it. And like you said, it was toxic to consume in the form that it was, because I don't know how to say this word, but it had high levels of, it's spelled ERUCIC.
Erucic.
Yeah. Well, so that's what makes it non-edible, and maybe some other things too, but it also tastes terrible, which is probably our body's way of telling us we shouldn't eat it. Anyway, and they have to go through all these complex methods, which we'll go over, to making it edible. But anyway, so that's why we even started introducing these oils in the first place, or one of the reasons why.
Yeah, it was all because of war. We had excess crops of this stuff. Okay, well, let's not just get rid of that and start something new that's more beneficial. Let's just make something beneficial out of what we already have.
Yeah.
So we see time and time again that method of thinking just doesn't always work out the way it should. We're just trying to ingest things that aren't right. And it's influenced by money,
Yeah.
That
industry
so much invested. Was making money, and they wanted to continue to make money.
Yeah.
So find a way to spin it, right?
Rapeseed oil has been used, which is canola oil, has been used since ancient times, because when I was looking into it, it says, it's been used since 4,000 years ago. They were using it for lamp oil and soaps, and some people are even saying for food, but I highly doubt that it was being used for food, because I doubt that they had any way to remove the erucic acid.
And it would taste horrible. So why would they? And they have animal fats that taste wonderful. Exactly. So why would they even bother with that?
If they were using it, they were most likely using it for the lamp oil and the soaps and stuff like that. But just to throw that out there for anyone who would want to say that they had been using that since ancient times for food, I highly doubt it.
Yeah. So basically, in the processing to even make this stuff edible, first thing you have to do is heat the seeds to extremely high temperatures, which cause oxidative damage and transform the polyunsaturated fatty acids into damaging trans fats. The seeds are then extracted with a chemical solvent, which is usually hexane, which in the process, they do lose some of the hexane that they put into it. So most likely some hexane is going into the oils themselves. And I did Google, like, why is that hexane bad? Okay, so fine.
Yeah,
it has hexane now. Why is that bad? They say that long-term exposure causes polyneuropathy, which is numbness in your extremities, so your hands and your feet and things like that. So probably if you're long-term seed diet heavy, you're probably going to experience that. And maybe you're probably going to experience a lot of other things too, but possibly.
I actually know a lot of people who have numbness in their extremities.
I really do too. And the people that I'm thinking of eat a lot of junk.
Yeah, most people do though.
So then they have to do a high heat deodorization, which may further damage those good polyunsaturated fats, or at least good with quotations polyunsaturated fats, because we'll talk about that later, and increase again the production of trans fats. And then after they deodorize it, they're going to add chemical preservatives to enhance the shelf life because they don't want it to go bad. They just spend all this time and energy making it good. So they add these things called BHT, BHAs that are really carcinogenic compounds into that oil mixture.
Yeah, it's a really complex process and a lot of just chemical additives.
Yeah, chemicals, high heat, just like a lot of work to make something that tastes like crap edible.
Yeah, I know. It's really crazy how they go through all this effort to make something not edible. Like, why not just use what's edible? Like,
Well,
go
I mean, you'll
use
see
make a
that time and
business.
time again
Yeah, like
in
make a
food.
business revolving around animal fats or a better oil. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like the same thing with how they strip all the nutrients out of food and then add them at the end.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, well, like we're missing something here.
it's crazy. Like how we got here just is mind blowing.
Yeah, it really is mind blowing. And then the fact that it's still ongoing and what we're doing with this podcast and why we're doing it, our mission is to just educate people, like so that that this is happening and you no longer accept this status quo. Because the longer that we stay eating bad foods, being sick, hooked on pharmaceutical medicines, depressed, all these things, we are no longer functioning at our highest capability in life. And we just want more people to understand that and take their lives in their own hands to be healthier and happier.
Yeah, because so many people are struggling. I mean, just with just like brain fog and not being able to think or just get through the day. I mean, so many people are just living in survival mode. And
Yes.
not to say that it all has to do with our food, but it has to do with our food and our ways of life and our spirituality and our states of mind, which it's all linked together.
Yes, but as long as we are enslaved to that mindset, then we'll never break free. And whoever is oppressing us, I don't know if it's our government or people that are in power, or people that are rich, that
People
are
in
just
power,
like
I would say.
people in power, people are at the higher level of the food chain, can like with making a lot of money and things like that. They're making the money off of it and they don't want this to change. They want to just keep raking it in. But like we have to all just wake up and stop accepting the poison,
Just like the movie Ants, they always have that clip where the grasshoppers he's in the little food restaurant, whatever, and he has a little piece of grain. He throws it at the other grasshoppers. Like he throws it at him, and he's like, "Does this hurt?" Because the other grasshoppers are like, "They're just a bunch of ants. Like they're just little ants. What can they do? They can't hurt us." So he throws a piece of grain. He's like, "That's one ant. Did that hurt?" And he's like, "No." And then he throws another. He's like, "Did that hurt?" "No." And then he like lets the whole thing loose, and it's like a big pile of grain, and they're drowned in it, right? And they're like, "Now, did that hurt?" And so the whole point was when when all those little ants stand up, then it's a force to be reckoned with, right?
Yes.
So when we all stand up and vote with our dollars and refuse to continue accepting this and buying these products and living this way, then they have to change because they want our money.
But the more that we don't stand up to this, the more poison we get and the more control that they have over us.
Yes.
And control is very easy to give up, but it's not easy to take back.
Very true.
So anyway.
Tangent.
Back to sea oils. I don't want to get banned or anything.
I don't think so.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is the different types of fats, because, we talked about trans fats, we talked about polyunsaturated fats, but like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I was always super confused about that. Like, everybody's like, trans fats are bad, saturated fats are good or bad or whatever. And I'm like, what is a trans fat? Can we slow down? What are these things? What is polyunsaturated? What is monounsaturated? Yeah. They just say this like we just are supposed to know what that means. And then we're supposed to care that it's good or bad. And I have a little explanations, but honestly, I don't know if this is going to be quite enough. I mean, to really truly understand this stuff, you'd have to go into like a deep dive of chemistry?
Yeah, I guess this is going to be basic level, guys. Let's just get our heads wrapped around it just a little bit, enough to just understand why we care.
So trans fat or trans fatty acid is a type of unhealthy fat created through a process called partial hydrogenation, where liquid oils are turned into solid fats like margarine or shortening, making them more stable and solid at room temperature. It's primarily found in processed foods like baked goods, fried foods, and some margarines, and is considered the worst type of fat for heart health due to its ability to raise bad cholesterol levels. Now,
So
I
basically,
think,
it's like
yeah.
thickened oils.
Now, I think both sides of the aisle, I think everybody agrees that trans fats are bad.
Yeah, they banned them in the food, but they're
Yeah.
not actually banned in food. It's just that there's a threshold now that there can
Yeah.
be so much, like so many grams of trans fats to be called trans fat
Yeah, it
free.
has to be, because we're still, probably all those fried foods at McDonald's and the fast food places, or just, they have to have trans fats in those, and other things like those margarines that they sell.
Like we shouldn't be eating that. Like I can't believe it's not butter. All that stuff is just like terrible.
Yeah.
Margarine, Crisco's, all that stuff is like off off limits.
Now, your conventional doctor is going to tell you that trans fats are bad, but where the water gets muddied is with saturated fats. I don't know how many conventional doctors are still agree. They used to always say that saturated fats were bad.
Yeah.
But saturated fats are actually not bad. Saturated fatty acids lack double bonds between the individual carbon atoms, while in unsaturated fatty acids, there is at least one double bond in the fatty acid chain. Saturated fats tend to be solid at room temperature and from animal sources, while unsaturated fats are usually liquid from plant sources.
Okay, so that's like our like
Animal
bacon
fats.
grease that whenever it's hot, it'll be liquid, but when it cools down, it's going to be like a block of grease, like
Yeah,
oil.
it's typically our animal fats, which are really good for us. I know growing up, my dad and all, they would talk about how they would eat that nasty lard. They had to grow up eating that. And that's probably why all their relatives have heart problems. They believe that because that's what we were taught and sold, because they were trying to demonize lard and the animal fats because they wanted you to go buy the other one, their Crisco and all that. But so that was stuck in my head so deeply that those fats were bad. But actually, we really need animal fats. That's what our body is programmed to accept and break down and burn as fuel.
Yeah, our bodies and our brain and other places, we need cholesterol. If you
Yes.
don't have enough cholesterol and good fats in your body, you cannot function at a high level or
No.
function at all if you don't
Yeah.
have enough. Like the whole low fat thing is just crazy.
Yeah, it's very detrimental to your health.
Yeah, it's good to have fats. Now, with anything, excessive amount of fats is bad, you know?
Yeah. In my research for this podcast, I was watching a video that was talking about how we have such a high sugar diet these days that our bodies have become accustomed to burning sugar for fuel. Rather, our bodies are supposed to be burning fats.
Yeah.
But when we're consuming so much sugar, our bodies are just so busy trying to burn off that sugar that the fats get stored. So if you're consuming a lot of sugar, your fats are going to get stored and you're going to gain weight. It's not that these saturated or animal fats are bad. It's any fats are going to, when you're just eating a ton of sugar.
Yeah.
Are going to get stored.
Like around the holidays when you can't get enough pie and other stuff.
Yeah.
Or is that just me?
Definitely not. Holidays like the national cheat time. So polyunsaturated fat is a type of dietary fat. It is one of the healthy fats along with monounsaturated fat. Polyunsaturated fat is found in plant and animal foods such as salmon and some nuts and seeds. So just to drive the point home about how good saturated fats can be for you, I found out that women's breast milk has up to 40% saturated fat. So we know that women's breast milk is great for us, great for our babies, our children. Our children need it to grow and develop, and adults need it to remain healthy.
The breast milk is perfect for developing brain. It's like critical for you to have saturated fats.
Yeah, it's also builds your cell walls and all of that. So it goes into so much,
I remember growing up in the 80s, early 90s, and it was this huge low fat craze, no fat. I remember whenever I first started grocery shopping for myself, and they had the Snackwell's little devil cakes, and they were like no fat or whatever. And I was obsessed with that. And it's like, was it really the fat that's the problem, or was it all the sugar? Because we just replaced fat with sugar.
Yeah.
And look what that has done to our society.
Oh God, yeah. Like we all thought we were eating healthy if it said low fat.
Yeah.
or if it had artificial sugar in it rather than real sugar.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, it doesn't have real sugar. It's got what I like, aspartame. That's better. It's just like we had it all backwards.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still do have it backwards because they just don't, they're still thinking this, but things change all the time. FDA, if you even trust that, but like FDA always reverses stances on stuff, or things just constantly change, and
science changes.
Science changes. Yeah. What we know changes. Studies change, more studies, more people that are willing to go out on a limb and publish something that is contradicting materialistic, like
the
mainstream materialism society.
Yeah,
and
I think
you'll see that come out. And then like with this article with the seed oils just coming out, it's just begging for us to take action.
I think like when I was younger and you're learning these things in school, like science and everything, you just automatically believe that that's what it is. That is fact. It's an unchanging fact. And then, these last few years, it really hit me like, none of that is fact. It's only what we think we know for the time being. But within these last 10 years or so, science has made so many changes and so many new discoveries So if you're not keeping up with that, you really are going to be left in the dust.
Do your own research. Unfortunately, there's so much stuff that's biased, and you have to do what feels right and what you can comprehend and all that stuff. But just because it's what's always been the status quo, don't just trust that that's what it is, because things are constantly evolving, and science evolves, and what we know and comprehend evolves. And then there's this constant thing about cholesterol. And I've been seeing so many things lately that it's like, again, cholesterol is important. Why would we want to have low cholesterol? I get that we eat Crisco and all this stuff and we eat too much of it. I do believe that you can eat too much of that. I think you can eat too much like lard and that stuff too, if you're just constantly having that in excess, just like anything with excess. But this war on cholesterol is raging. And like, is cholesterol really the problem here?
No. And that's how I had it broken down to me one way a while back. They said blaming cholesterol is like blaming the fire truck for the fire. Because everywhere you see a fire truck. But that doesn't mean that the fire truck caused the fire. It's actually there to put out the fire. And that's what cholesterol is doing. It's always in you'll always see it in the problem area, but it's actually coming there to help solve the problem. Right. But it's not being solved correctly because there's other issues going on. Right.
Yeah.
But it's not cholesterol causing the problem. But we just instantly, all we saw was, cholesterol is everywhere where we have a problem. So cholesterol is the problem. And now they're really starting to understand that it's not cholesterol. And these cholesterol medications are really, really bad for you.
Yes. And that's this whole other thing. Everything's high cholesterol. I guess what used to be considered high back before they started making vegetable oils, back then it was acceptable to have higher cholesterol. And since they started making the seed oils, it's getting lower and lower what they think is safe for us. And more people are going on statins, which are just horrible for their health. And in all honesty, what I really struggle with doctors is lifestyle changes. My dad just went to the doctor recently, and I asked him after it was over, and I wanted to participate in this, but I couldn't. But did he say you need to work out? Did he say you need to stop eating so-and-so or anything like that? I mean, he did hound him about smoking, but other than that, he didn't say anything about diet, nothing about exercise, none of that stuff. And it's like, I'm just thinking, that's where, like, when you have a problem like this, food, I guess high cholesterol in their eyes, that is solved with diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the medicine is just in lieu of diet. Keep eating like shit and you can just take this and you'll stay alive.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that our medical system has been built upon for all these years now, is you don't have to make any changes. You can just take this pill and it'll help to curb those annoying symptoms and you'll live a little longer. But it's not fixing the root problem. And actually the root problem is very simple to fix. Making these diet changes and these lifestyle changes can be hard at first.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but truly it's not hard.
No, it's uncomfortable. It's like, okay, don't eat any more processed foods. Only eat fruits, vegetables, meats. Be careful. And in all honesty, we take it the extra mile with organic and all that stuff. And I do think it's important, but if you weren't going to do that, you could still just eat a very basic diet of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains and be in a way better position than eating like rice-a-roni and, like Chef Boyardee and processed junk,
Exactly. Whole foods, not processed foods.
Yes.
Definitely. And just another thing about cholesterol, it's the precursor to all of our steroid hormones. It is the building blocks that our steroid hormones are built off of. So without cholesterol, your hormones are going to be all out of whack.
Yes. It's important for so many things to have cholesterol, but you have to eat healthy, well-rounded food, and then you will see miraculous changes, because the cholesterol stuff, I mean, that's a dietary thing. It doesn't have to be a pill,
That's why so many people think it's so crazy to believe that we could actually cure these terrible diseases by they're like, oh, I could just eat better and all my diseases are going to go away. Like, right. That's how my mom was, because she has Parkinson's, and Parkinson's is an autoimmune disease now, they believe, right? It's a disruption in the gut, basically your gut microbiome. And not to say that my mom's been having it for a while, and Parkinson's starts when you're younger, way before you start to see symptoms. So I'm not saying I don't know if she could fully heal, but I know she can really
get a way better quality of life.
Yes, a way better quality of life. And she just thought that was the most absurd thing, because we've been conditioned to believe that you need these complex medications and pills that are made by scientists.
Surgeries.
Like you couldn't possibly get better by such a simple thing, but you really can. It's just it's all about money. And that's what we
and
need
again,
to realize.
as long as we keep accepting this as our status quo and we don't stop and understand how these things affect our lives, then we will just continue to be slaves of this system, So in the 20th century, the rise in vegetable oils coincides with the rise in chronic diseases like heart disease, obesity, diabetes. The rise in seed oils meant that people were consuming huge amounts of fats. So everybody was just like, oh, this is healthy. Let me just pour it in. You're not worried about quantity because you think it's healthy. It's not this bad lard. So I have this now and it's healthy and I'm going to use a lot of it. And then also we're seeing these seed oils present in every processed food across the board. Okay.
Yes.
Every single thing that you pick up in the grocery store that comes in a box or a package, look at the ingredients and you will find it.
So hard to get away from.
Very limited people or companies are making stuff that is actually devoid of seed oils.
Even all of your organic little snack foods,
like
those
Whole
are full.
Foods. Everything in Whole Foods has seed oils.
Yeah, and they'll say, oh, it's organic canola oil. That doesn't matter if it's organic or not, because that's truly not really what's making it bad. I mean, sure, okay, maybe now it's got glyphosate in it.
Yeah.
But it's still got all these other terrible things. So that's why going to a Whole Foods diet is the ideal, so that
Not
you can
Whole
make
Foods
things
like the grocery store.
Right, like Whole Foods. If you're gonna make, I don't know,
mac and cheese,
or
whatever,
you need.
It's not a box.
Yeah, not with the little packet of that powdered cheese or that liquid cheese. You need to go get a block of cheese, your noodles, and whatever your seasonings, your some raw milk if you're gonna put milk, or whatever, coconut milk, whatever you do.
But everything prepackaged, like lean cuisine type thing, all that stuff. I mean, literally everything is going to have seed oils unless you're very careful about what you're choosing to ingest. So it's like, I mean, but ultimately we talk about this and the need to get away from seed oils, and it's a very uncomfortable change because processed foods are so convenient and they're so tasty because they're engineered to be tasty, because they want it to be addictive. They want us to want that. And for real foods to not taste as good, because you will buy their food instead of the other stuff. But we just have to deal with how uncomfortable it is and how it's not as good. And you just move on from the mentality that your food has to be super palatable, bioengineered food.
Or making lifestyle changes, because these things are really marketed towards these moms, these busy moms who don't have time to cook and don't have time to make these homemade snacks and meals. Well, my way of getting around that, for one way, was my kids don't have snacks anymore. And if they do, it's going to be like a fruit that they can grab or something like that. Not something I have to fix. They have breakfast and they have dinner, and anything else is on your own. So something quick you can grab, but not not a processed food, whole food, like
Yeah.
apples, grapes, little stick cheeses, things like that. But also, you know, and doing meal prep days, things like that, where you prep a bunch of stuff for the week in one day. Because I know a lot of busy moms that are just like, I'm just trying to make it, you know, I got to run all these things, these practices on I work, and I get it. It's hard.
Yeah,
But
but also, you know, you might have to make changes to the amount of things that your kids are
Yeah.
in so that you have time to prepare food, because food is
the most important,
the most important thing you do.
more
the
than
food,
what the sports your kids play.
yes, the food that they're ingesting is way more important than that. This is long-term health and happiness. And the only way you're going to be functioning at a high level is to eat nutritious foods that you prepare, because unless you have the ability to have a private chef,
Yeah.
which would be awesome, but then you have to spend the time to do it. That's another thing, is if you're eating out, you're eating seed oils, and also you're eating glyphosate, Roundup bombs every time you have beans, and every time you have wheat, and pretty much everything else, the fruit. I mean, it's just so heavily infiltrated in our food
Preservatives, all
that,
kind, MSG. I mean,
yes,
the
like
list
you have
goes
no
on.
control over what you're eating when you eat out.
Yeah, and none of these restaurants are paying attention to this stuff. They
Some
can't.
do.
I mean,
It is possible to find some. There's this app called Seed Oil Scout, and it's a pay for service where you can see what restaurants actually say that they use, like tallow or olive oil or whatever.
but that's just the oils.
Yeah, that's just the oils. I mean, there's probably some good cities around the United States and other countries that you could go to a restaurant and have an organic, real meal, farm to table and all that stuff, but they're just so few and far between. We don't have any farm to table restaurants here.
I know, and I hear those about that all the time. I'm like, where's ours? 'Cause I don't have one.
I know, I wish. I make do with what I have, but it's really difficult to try to eat clean and eat out. It just doesn't really go together. But that's good, because I mean, it's more time at home with our families, doing it together. If it's the weekend, that's always when I want to eat out, but maybe that's time to have like a family meal where you all do it together. You know, like sometimes we'll make something that takes a little longer, more involved, you know, because we have more hands available.
Yeah, it's like a team effort here. So we actually have our kids in MMA now, and that is, you know, against what we just said. Don't put your kids in the sports. But this is probably going to be temporary. It's not going to be forever. And my kids are also homeschooled, so they're home all day. So this is their chance to get out. But anyway, it's right around dinner time. So we kind of worked out this routine where I get it started, and then when I have to go pick up the kid, like I bring the kids, I drop them off, I come back home, I get it started, and then Nick gets home from work, and then he kind of finished, and then I go get the kids, and when we get back, everything's ready. And then Nick and I will like put on a show on TV, and we'll watch TV while we're cooking, and it's the whole thing, and we enjoy it. It's kind of a special moment, you know?
Yeah, it can be nice. Those I would say HelloFresh, but then again, those are not going to be organic and all that other stuff, but those can be fun. Or just finding recipes, signing up for a newsletter, or liking food influencers on social media and stuff can be helpful when you find something that you really like, and then you can go with it. Like, is it Half Baked Harvest? She has a lot of good recipes that are yummy.
Or Pinterest. I just go in Pinterest, like especially when I was doing dairy free and grain free, just a dairy free, grain free, I don't know, lasagna, whatever it is. And they have a ton of stuff that pops up. What?
I have a confession to make.
What?
Remember how I opened that Pinterest account for our podcast so that we could do those infographics and have links or whatever to Amazon? Well, I got banned from Pinterest.
How?
I guess you're not supposed to do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I got banned from Pinterest. So I can't access. When I try to access Pinterest, I'll click on something and it takes me there. I get like an email saying you have been banned.
Wow. That's funny.
So yeah, Pinterest is off the table for me, I guess. Unless like I make like a fake account.
Different account.
So another reason why, like, because, you know, we talk about omega-3s and things like that, omega-3s being good, is vegetable oils have a lot of omega-6s. And there's this certain ratio in our body where, you know, too much of one thing is bad. And basically these omega-6s cause like a dishevelment in our body and cause inflammation, and it's just not good for our bodies to have a lot of omega-6s.
Yeah.
To have a lot of them. It's good to have some of them, but not a lot.
Yeah. Seed oils, hold on. These seed oils are considered omega-6s. Were you going to read that part?
I was about those omega-6s that are good for us are usually found in nuts. Eating a handful of nuts and things like that is good. But then, you've heard don't eat too much nuts. It's not good to have too many of them, but there's this healthy medium where you have enough of fat that's good for us, but not too much.
Well, it's all about the ratio because the nuts probably still have omega 3s. And as long as the omega 3s to omega 6 ratio is correct, then because yeah, we still need omega 6s, but the problem is most of our foods today, especially like you said, the ultra processed and processed foods.
Just says we should eat them in moderation.
You just gotta watch what Google says though, because Google, you know what Google is. They say canola
And then I
oil
think
is
certain nuts have more omega-6s and certain nuts have more 3s and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably like almond. They always say almonds are the better almonds and Brazil nuts and stuff like that. The ones you don't want to eat as much.
Yeah, so I know my nutritionist said that I need to have 2 Brazil nuts every day for selenium, and man, those are just some hard nuts to eat.
Yeah, it's never I love cashews. Those are my favorite, and they're probably like the least healthy out of all of them, maybe.
Yeah.
And peanuts. I love peanut butter.
Well, it looks like almonds have like 12,000 milligrams of omega-6s to 6 milligrams of omega-3s.
Wow.
Yeah. So it looks like everything has a lot of omega-6s. Oh, except for, okay, salmon, wild raw salmon has 172 milligrams of omega-6s to 2,000 milligrams of omega-3s. So that ratio is great. The fish have like a really great ratio where the tons of omega-3s and not as much omega-6s for the most part. But nuts kind of are on the other side where they have more omega-6s to 3s.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Except like chia seeds have a ton of omega-3s and a lot less 6s. So there's a graph. You can go look it up on Wikipedia and see what are really good for you. So the thing about these oxidized omega-6s end up making your cellular membranes. And so those highly oxidized omega-6s will cause cellular damage, inflammation, oxidative stress from free radicals that leads to early aging, acne, chronic health issues, and gut problems. So these omega-6s that are oxidized just aren't good for your body. They cause a lot of damage. Omega fatty acids are considered essential fatty acids because our bodies don't make them. We have to get them in our diets. So we don't make our own omegas.
Yeah. And they're really important. We really need omegas.
So we talked about all these different fats and what it means and why we care and all that stuff. And you can go and do some more research. Some research just came out. A new research paper just came out about seed oil. It's been in the news. So there's a new study that was just released around at the beginning of December. Ultra-processed foods high in seed oils could be fueling colon cancer risk. A new study suggests certain lipids, particularly omega-6 fatty acids, which are commonly found in seed oils used to make ultra-processed junk food, may promote inflammation in colon cancer tumors. So they're finally seeing what everybody's been saying, that it causes inflammation. Well, it causes inflammation to the point that it is causing colon cancer tumors. So we're seeing higher incidences of them. And now science is pointing to the fact that it's being oils.
Well, that's good that is coming out.
Yes, and that's like all over mainstream news right now. And that's really why we wanted to post this, to really take a deeper dive in that. And, like we said before, you'll see it in all sorts of prepackaged foods. But one of the places that I was really shocked to find out is that it's in all of our baby formulas. So I didn't pay attention.
That's so shocking to me when you told me that.
I didn't pay attention to this whenever I was not able to breastfeed my girls. I had twins and it was too much, and I have to let it go because I can still go down this rabbit hole of feeling like I didn't do enough to try to breastfeed, but it just was not in the cards and it all worked out. But I gave Arabella a baby formula. They were both on different ones. Arabella had a ton of palm oil, which I freaking hate. There's studies that show that it metastasizes cancer cells. And then Addison was on some kind of seed oil, vegetable oil stuff. And so my friend had a baby and I looked at the back and I saw the seed oil on it. And it was like the Kendamil or something with a K. It's like goat milk. It's the bougie, like new age baby formula. And so I started looking to see which one was better. And I realized that there's none that's better because it is an FDA regulation that all baby formula in the United States has to have polyunsaturated fats. And the only authorized polyunsaturated fats in the United States is seed oils. They don't
That's
authorize anything else as being polyunsaturated fats that could fit that description. It must be seed oil.
that's super sketchy.
So
Like
your
super
baby
sketchy.
is drinking seed oil all day and all night for an entire year.
And remember, the mother's milk has 40% saturated fats, and now this formula is full of fats from seed oils.
Yeah, sometimes the seed oil is the first or second ingredient. It's all the way at the top. It's the most common thing that's in the baby formulas.
Which is probably why we're seeing so many problems in children now.
Yes.
So many diseases and disorders.
It's like neurological disorders, all sorts of things going on, and everybody wonders why. And can you really point to like one specific thing? Was it the vaccine?
Yeah,
Was
because there's
it,
so many.
environmental? Was it mold? Was it this? There's so many things, but we're just saying that seed oil is a big one, and it's coming out, and there's going to be more that's coming out, that eventually we're going to probably as a society not even use this stuff anymore. I hope that that the science wins on this one, and that we finally can eradicate this from our diets and stop worrying about it, because it's just ridiculous that we have to be so vigilant all the damn time about every freaking thing we ingest.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
But yeah, like there's no baby. If it's called a baby formula, then it's going to have seed oil. And the only way you can get around that is I think there's a company that's called toddler formula. A toddler formula doesn't have to have that. Now you have to make sure that your baby's getting the proper nutrition. You're going to have to take a deep dive on that. I do not know a lot about this. My babies were born when I did not care about seed oils. If I had a baby now, I would probably look into that toddler stuff, or possibly there's some recipes online of how to make your own, but that might be a little extreme.
I don't know. A lot of people do it. I hear people doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like I would think that it's time consuming, but then again, I cloth diapered my kids, twins, for their whole
I mean, breastfeeding is time consuming.
Yeah, pumping and all that stuff. Not that I know.
Vegetable oils. Another thing that makes them bad is that most of them contain GMO ingredients, like GMO corn, soy, and God knows what other GMOs. But a lot of them are made from corn and soy.
Genetically modified GMO.
Yes. And GMOs, that's a podcast topic that we need to go over one day that I've been wanting to cover. GMOs are a whole nother evil that we want to avoid.
Yep. And then another thing, if you've made this change to seed oils, if you're like, yes, I agree, this has got to change and I'm going to do all this, then you kind of get into a side rabbit hole, I like to call it. And that is that they're finding out, you'll see in the news, if you go type in Vital Farms, you're going to see where they're under a lot of heat right now because they did some testing of Vital Farms eggs, which are bougie eggs that are really expensive, super expensive. And they are coming out that they're super high in omega-6s.
Are you saying vital with a T or viral?
Vital Farms.
Okay.
Vital Farms eggs. They did some some studies on them and found that their omega-6s are off the charts, and that really shouldn't be the case. And the reason why is because they're feeding it a soy diet. So if you're feeding your chickens soy, or your farmer, wherever you get your eggs, if they're feeding chickens soy, it's basically like feeding chickens soybean oil. It's just as bad, So they're going to be.
That's just soy, or if it would be corn too, because all the chicken feed is corn.
Really?
Mostly. Yeah.
It might, but I don't know. Maybe corn's not as bad. Maybe it's just that it hasn't been studied yet. So it's definitely something to ask about. Is if you're like me, we eat at least 6 eggs a day.
I know, I eat a ton of eggs.
Pounding eggs. I love eggs. My girls love eggs. It's an easy food for them to eat that I feel good about them eating. But now it's like, okay, we're eating a lot of these eggs, so they really need to be very clean eggs. I don't want the feeds to be eating garbage. The feeds. I don't want the chickens to be eating trash, because then we're just eating trash,
Yep.
So I asked the guy who at the farmer's market who I get my eggs from, I was like, hey, what do you feed? And he's like, oh, it's an organic food. And I'm like, okay, can you send me like the name of it or the ingredients or whatever? I want to see if it has soy in it, because we know that it's just not good to eat a ton of soy products. And then another one is, so in the meat industry, there's this thing called yellow grease that is allowed by the FDA, that the farmers can feed their animals, like cows and pigs and other things, a certain percentage of recycled fats, frying fats that come from restaurants. So
That
they
is
take them in
insane.
these big bins and they take all this rancid oil and then they process it again and they feed it to our animals that we eat in CAFOs.
Wow. I mean, they just make it worse and worse. Like, they're like, how could we make this any worse than it already is? Oh, I know. Let's feed them all this old grease.
It's just so repulsive to think of. That is so foul. And yet it's, again, like, okay, we have this waste resource. How can we make money off of it?
And that's not the only one. I don't want to say it wrong, but I was hearing on a podcast with Joel Salatin, the Beyond Labels one, how, oh, what was it? That they are using, I think it's human waste, like septic waste, as to fertilize the fields that the cows are
that's
grazing
just
off of as fertilizer. But now there are clean ways to do that, but the way they said it didn't sound very clean. It
like
wasn't like a natural way, I believe. It was awful. And it's just constant stuff like that where they're trying to reuse things that they shouldn't.
Yeah, like I get it. Humans are at an all-time high of using products and wasting products, and we have this huge burden that we put on the earth. But unfortunately, not all new applications for waste are good.
Yeah.
We'll see time and time again recycled electronics in the black packaging of takeout containers. The recycling of plastic is starting to get very contaminated and starting to show up in food containers and things like that, and feeding waste products to animals and then eating the animals. And what do you think that's doing to our bodies? We are what we eat. So it's just, we have to stop, maybe work on producing less waste than trying to find a new way to use what we've damaged.
Yes.
You know?
I think that's the key. Let's produce less waste.
Yeah. And then another thing is a lot of things coming out about people exposed, like being whistleblowers at farms, at CAFOs, where they're feeding pigs and things just recycled, like literal plastic, pulverized plastic. They're just feeding them plastic.
That's like unbelievable.
And they feed them like sawdust. I mean, that's like, I mean, we even eat sawdust. It's in our shredded cheese and stuff like that.
But we shouldn't.
All right. So what can you do? Try to use better oils, animal fats, tallow, butter. Some grass-fed butter would be great. Ghee is great. I use coconut oil for baking. I find that it works really well. I use olive oils for dressings, and then I tend to use avocado oils for like sauteing anything in a pan, basically. But I'm kind of trying to move, maybe I found some goat milk butter at Whole Foods that is really yummy, and I'm thinking I'm going to do that.
I would say for any cooking, like sauteing or, any cooking on the stove or baking, the best bet would be animal fats, butter. That's your best, safest bet. Butter, ghee, animal fats. Like I'm even considering, how when you cook ground beef and you have fat left over, I'm considering using that to brown my onions in and stuff.
Like rendering it or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, just for, I'm not going to save it. I'm just going to use the fat that I got from the ground beef that I'm cooking for that meal.
Instead of straining it, leave it in there.
Yeah. Or just leave enough to brown those onions or whatever,
Yeah.
That's something I'm personally considering, but that's probably your best bet. And if you're going to use the avocado oil like we were talking about, just try not to cook all the way cranking it up. Keep your, like I cook on 3. My stove, that's how it does it. It just like 1 to 10 or 9. And I cook on 3.
Wow. Low and slow.
Low and slow. Yeah.
I am impatient. I'm like 6'8".
I know that's how I used to be, but I just trying,
Yeah, but you also need to research and buy it. I mean, look, if you're just starting out and this is overwhelming, buy whatever you find, avocado oil or olive oil, whatever. But just be aware that there's also some issues with some contamination in oils. A lot of olive oils and avocado oils that are on the shelves from less reputable brands and things, they're mixing it with vegetable oils and stuff. There's this whole thing, the maybe like mafia type people in Italy with the olive oil. It's like a mafia organization type thing where they're mixing it with vegetable oil to like make more profits and stuff. Wow. So It's a very adulterated product. There's not enough olives in the world to make enough olive oil to like for us to use. Steer and clear of plastic containers. When you're buying your oils, it's best to buy them in a glass jar because those leach microplastics and phthalates into the oil itself. Buying your eggs and meat from local farmers, hopefully at a farmer's market. You can find someone and ask them about their practices. I guarantee that asking someone and just having trust in someone doing the right thing is much better than trusting these mega corporations that definitely do not care. And then, like my guy, maybe I can educate him about the soy if the stuff contains it. And maybe I can help him come up with another solution or something, possibly. I don't know. But like you can work together for some things if it's non-negotiable for you.
Local is almost always going to be better.
Yes, you're supporting local people in your community that are doing the hard work of providing actual good food for you,
Yeah.
So that's our advice. We hope that you understand why it's important to not eat seed oils and that you start looking at the back of your labels and looking out for these oils and put it down whenever you see that. Maybe you're going to end up finding out that you can't have processed foods. It just doesn't work out. But, find some good recipes online that really get you excited about eating good actual fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, and stop trying to do it the quick and easy way because that's just not the good way for your health and your happiness.
That's right.
And we just want you guys to be healthy and happy. I mean, it's just very important. I don't want to see the people I love struggle. And I know that there's so many people out there that just need a push in the right direction to just not buy into this stuff anymore and to do the hard work and the uncomfortable work it takes to be happy and healthy.
Right. Because we want to see people thrive.
Yes.
We're so tired. We're so tired of seeing people struggle and just surviving. And we know that we're all capable of so much more. We are all so powerful and just full of so much life, and hardly anyone's really living it. Yes. And it's out there. It's available. We can have it. You just have to put in a little work and make some changes.
And I really think too, because like you and I are both on this, our consciousness is expanding in so many ways right now. And it started with food. Once you start to eliminate those bad things, you will start to see the bigger picture.
Yes. Because it doesn't end with food. Food is just the surface. Really.
That's just like the basics to get your body functioning on a level where you can even focus on anything else.
Right. And then once you start seeing results from the food changes that you've made, you'll start looking into more and more, like Heather just said. And you start to go down this wonderful rabbit hole. Like, it's not like this terrible thing. And you just open your mind to all of these possibilities and this life that you could possibly live. And it's just so possible. It's quite the journey.
Look at us. Yep. We are not perfect. We don't do the perfect things all the time. We have learned hard lessons and we have had to overcome challenges and traumas and all sorts of things. But I am so much happier today than I've ever been in my entire life. I'm happy. And I know it is because of all these things that we do.
I agree 100%.
And you can do that too. For $19.99. I'm just joking. For just a small amount of $19.99 a month. No, not actually. To just be uncomfortable and make the changes. Just do it. Stop holding on to what is making you sick.
Yes.
You can do it. You have the power. And seriously, if you have a question about something, post it on Facebook, send us a message, put it under the comments of YouTube, ask us if there's a certain oil that's bad, or if you want us to point you in a direction on something, or have a conversation about it.
Or if there's something that you want to know about, you want us to do a podcast about it because you need to be more educated on it, let us know. We will do the research. We'll cover it. We'll do the best we can to, provide you with the knowledge you need to get started.
Yes, but get started.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season, a very happy new year. And a new year, this next year we're going into, is so powerful. The stars and everything in the cosmos are aligning for us to just rise above all of this stuff and be happy and healthy and have everything we want out of life. So please believe that you can have all those things. You must just believe it and it will be true.
That's right.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.